submission, and I think many of you have submitted. So that's very encouraging for us. And we'll start with the session. So we will start with the yesterday's session, which we could not do. And I hope with this discussion, there is some sort of summarization also of the yesterday's session, which we did. So today's first session is on the developing a qualitative research protocol. Because few of you were also discussing in the main group, like, should you include a qualitative component or not in your thesis? And if, then how it should be done. So yes, I again said that if you have to think whether your research question, does it definitely need a qualitative approach or not? Or you can also do a qualitative study along with the quantitative, that's a mixed method, as a way of learning initially. But at the when you have got experience, then also you should do a qualitative only when it is warranted. That yes, a qualitative study should be done. And in this session will help you what should be there in a protocol if you are making a qualitative protocol along with a quantitative one. Because we received many projects here at our institute, and we saw that we reviewed those proposals and the qualitative component was very weak, and we are in a habit of making the qualitative proposal also like a quantitative one. So that should not be done, because qualitative, again, we have seen that it is entirely a different way of doing a research as compared to the quantitative. So you should know what component you should have in your qualitative proposal. And we have shared, I guess we have shared or we'll share. Dr. Shamshad, have you shared the qualitative proposal with them, the ideal one? They should be. Okay. We have not shared that, but we will share with you one draft of the ideal. Like you people were asking for the ideal studies. So we'll share one ideal draft protocol with you people, so that as a reference, so that whenever you plan to make a proposal of a qualitative component, then you should include those things. Try to include. Maybe in the first instance, it may not be possible to have all the points covered, but if you try to include most of the point, it will be a good proposal. So in this case, like this study, which was a ICMR research, where the topic is like people change their health care provider without professional referral. So this research, obviously this research idea must have come up to the researcher. So you have got this research problem, because you will also see that they change their health. We also change our healthcare provider. But what is the driving factor? Why we do so? So if you want to understand, not even why, what are we actually doing it? In that case, first we need to select an appropriate study design. So what will be the appropriate study design? So selection of this appropriate study design again depends on what we studied together yesterday. It could be, if this is the research question, that people change their healthcare provider without professional referral. So now you have to tell me what are this research design will depend on what, if you have to find an answer. Yesterday we covered it. So I may ask you people even to write in the chat box, or to even unmute and you can ask you can say, okay, Sujit is writing ontology. Yes, because axiology is now clear that this is the research topic. So we'll start with the ontology. So true, so ontology, and then the epistemology, and then again the research methodology. So that we know as the worldview assumption. So what is worldview, or what is a research paradigm of a positivism or a constructivism or a pragmatism? It depends what type of research design we will choose. And then the second is the strategies or the procedure of inquiry. So what are the strategies we are going to follow? And third is the specific method of data collection, analysis, and interpretation. So this worldview assumption includes the ontology, and then this strategy includes the type of research method, whether it is quantitative, qualitative, or mix, and then what type of data collection method you are going to adopt. That is the third point which you should have. So again, people change their healthcare provider without professional referral. If then what is your worldview for this problem? So do you want to know the burden of this problem? That may be the first worldview. Do you want to then know the reasons of the problem? That may be the second worldview. Or do you want to know the burden as well as the reason of this problem? Okay, so there can be three possibility. So how this worldview has shaped my research approach. So if I want to know the burden of this problem, then I have a positivism research paradigm, and the method I will adopt will be the quantitative. If I want to know the reasons of the problem, I want to explore it, then my research paradigm is of a constructivism, and then I will use the qualitative method of inquiry. If I want to know the burden as well as the reasons of this problem, then my paradigm is the pragmatism, and then I will approach the mixed method. So once I have fixed my worldview, or once the researcher has fixed the worldview, then what strategy or procedure of inquiry I will adopt to for the given problem. So do I want to know the burden of this problem? Do I want to know the reasons? And then do I want to know the burden as well as reasons? So now the second is a strategy. So what will be the strategy of the procedure? That is again dependent on the type of research paradigm. So if I want to know the burden of the problem, then I will might use a cross-sectional or a longitudinal study method. If I want to know the reasons of this problem, then might use the phenomenology. And if I want to know the burden as well as reason, then I may choose to take the narrative or cross-sectional and narrative, or any other type of research method like mixed method design. Then once I have fixed my strategy, what type of study method of data collection, analysis or interpretation I will use. So do you want to know the burden of the problem? Again, the same thing. Do you want to know the reasons of the problem, or do you want to know the burden as well as reasons of the problem? So in the data collection, that is a third one. So the same thing you will see, I'm using the same research problem, but again, three things. First was the worldview. Second was the strategy. And the third is the specific method of data collection. So if I want to know the burden of the problem, I'll use a survey, or I might do it as a record-based study. If I want to know the reasons, then I might do the interview or the focus group discussion. And if I want to know the burden as well as reasons, then I will use the mixed method. So now there are three chapters or three sections, to be more precise. There are three sections of a qualitative research protocol. First is the introduction. Second is the review of literature. And third is the methodology. So we are now discussing before we start the data collection and just for submission. And that final report will include the other sections as well. But the submission of a protocol has got these three basic chapters: introduction, review of literature, and methodology. That is very much similar to the quantitative, but what we write inside, that's a different, it's a little different from the quantitative. Now, what to write in the introduction? So like in, they have got, so again, reference book is the Torrell, which we have recommended, which we recommend for you people. So there are basically, this introduction is little different from the quantitative introduction. How? That we'll see. So the key points for the introduction are again the background. Then we write the problem statement. Then we write the significance. I'll take up each of these points separately. So don't worry, I'm just enumerating right now, and we'll see each and every point separately. So there's a background, there's a problem, and then there's a significance that we have to write. The fourth is a purpose of study, which is very important. What is the purpose of study? And in this purpose, we define the central phenomena. We'll discuss this central phenomena, which is the core of this qualitative research. And then comes the research questions. So the first 5 points in your introduction should be the background, then the problem, then the significance of the study, purpose of the study, research question. The other things like definition of terms, whatever term you are using, because for qualitative, you know that term which we understand or the definition of those terms. Like if you write domestic violence, then you have to define what do you mean by domestic violence. So definition of terms, assumptions, what are your assumptions? That is also needed, that we'll see the limitations of your research. Then comes a point which is the delimitation. Now, what is this delimitation, that we'll also see. And then at last, conclusion. So in this, we'll see all these 10 points that should be there in your introduction part of the research protocol. So how we have discussed, a research protocol should have got 3 sections. First section is of introduction. Second section is of review of literature. And third section is of methodology. So this 10 points we are discussing, that is only for the introduction. Now, one of you can read this statement for me. Sujit, I can see your name at the last. Can you read this?
Yeah, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah. Despite the availability of public transportation, many people who live outside of the city drive their cars to work daily. Government officials are concerned with traffic congestion, the potential lack of parking facilities, and air pollution within the city. An exploration of this issue will be of help in lessening the traffic jam and cleaner air in cities.
Thank you, Sujit. So you can see we have made the whole paragraph, we have colored it into 3 different parts. Now, why we have done so? Because if you see the first part, despite the availability of public transportation, many people who live outside of the city drive their cars to work daily. So this is what? This is the background of this study. If you have created something like this, this is the background of the city, like which you have identified, that you have observed that the people, they are not using the public transport, rather they are using the their own car. Then this use of their own car is leading to what problems? Traffic congestion, potential lack of parking facilities, and again air pollution. So with this background, what is the problem? The problem is that it is creating traffic congestion and air pollution also. So with that background, this is the problem, and this is the significance of the study, that if you explore, then how it is going to help. So it will help in lessening of traffic jam and cleaner air in the city. So these are the 3 points. Remember, in the this previous slide, we have seen the 3, first, second, and third. That is the background, problem, and significance. The whole 3 together is known as the problem statement. That is the background, problem, and significance. This whole 3 together combines to make your problem statement. So a problem statement should have the background of the study, the actual problem, and if you solve this problem or if you explore this issue, how it is going to help. That is the significance of your study. Am I making sense to all of you? Are you people getting what I'm talking? Otherwise, I may repeat also in between. I may need a few. Yes, Garima is saying yes. Akanksha, Sundar. Okay. Thank you. Shraddha, Sujit, Manisha. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. So up till now, we have discussed the 3 parts of the introduction, 3 points rather. That is the background of the introduction, then the problem, and then the significance. And these 3 things together make the problem statement. In this case, now this task is up to you. So this problem statement, one of you can read this. Manisha, I can see your name. Can you read this for
Yes,
us?
ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, Manisha.
Despite the availability of IFA tablets for pregnant women in district, consumption of IFA is very low. Health officials are concerned with postpartum hemorrhage, low birth weight, and IUGR in the district.
Thank you, Manisha. So now, all of you, please identify the first, what is the background, what is the problem, and what is the significance, or is anything missing here? So yes, first I'm asking, what is the background? So yes, Sundar is writing significance is missing, true. But what about background? Which is the background? Availability. Consumption of IFA is the background. So yes, despite the availability of the IF for the pregnant women in the district, and then the consumption of IFA is low. So what is the background? Background is the low IFA intake despite availability. Akanksha is right. And then what is the problem statement? So because of that background, yes. So problem statement is PPH, low birth weight and IUGR. That is the problem. And then what is the significance? So you are right that significance is not mentioned. So if you have to write the significance, how will you write? What will you write? You can unmute and answer. If you don't want to type that long sentence, you can always unmute and say. That is always good. Because I also don't want you to type so much. And I think by this time we are free to talk to each other. So you can always say that. Sandeep, can you unmute and say what will be the significance in this case if you have to write? MMR. Shraddha is writing. Okay, Shraddha, can you unmute and say? Okay. So yes, maybe any volunteer who would like to talk? What is the missing or how we can okay, so Pooja has written. Good. So significance would be educating people could lead to increasing consumption of tablet and lead to less cases of the above problem. Okay. Educating means because the it depends again that whether your research question is of education or not, because that education will come after you have explored the reasons and then you will try to tackle those reasons. So maybe you can write that exploring the reasons or exploration of the issue of the low intake will help in the increase intake, and then that will help or that will reduce the postpartum hemorrhage, low birth weight and IUGR in the district. So yes, significance is to know the reasons, and then knowing the reason and tackling will maybe help in lessening of the those problems of the problem statement. So again, significance is always if you are lessening your problem statement, if your study is helping to lessen the problem statement, that is the significance. Okay, Garima is writing like safe delivery with healthy baby and mother as an outcome. Okay, good. So now so now you know what is a problem statement. So problem statement consists of three parts. That is the background, and then the problem itself, and then tackling those problem or the exploration of those problem is known as will be the significance of your study, and that is the significance. Then comes the purpose statement, because if you remember the fourth point here, so I have done this background, then problem, and then significance. Then fourth is your purpose of study. And then fifth is a research question. So if I come to this purpose of the study, purpose statement. Now what is a purpose statement? So purpose statement is like, it has got why it is required. So in purpose statement, always there is something known as the central phenomena. So this is a very important part or important concept of your research proposal, that you should be able to identify the central phenomena of your study, because many times there are many words in your research question or maybe in your problem statement, but what is the central phenomena, that is important. So you should have an idea about the central phenomena in this purpose statement. So purpose statement has got few sub parts. So there should be central phenomena in your purpose statement. there should be a name or the idea about the participants. There should be idea about the study site. What is a study site? Then it should contain words like perception, purpose. Purpose word should be there, or the intent. And then it contain action words like describe, understand, develop, and it should have a neutral or non-directional language. So remember, in research question, we always say that PICOT format should be applied, like population, intervention, comparison, outcome, and time. So similarly, that research question, that is the mnemonic which we use for that. A bit similar to that, here also you will find that there should be some central phenomena, there should be participant, there should be study site, there should be use of word like purpose or intent, and then there should be action words like understand, describe, and develop, and it should have a non-directional or a neutral language. That should be the main parts of a purpose statement. Now, if this is a purpose statement, so you can see if I break it into parts, so I have written the purpose of this study is to understand why commuters. So this is in continuation with the previous problem statement, that the purpose statement of this study, the purpose of this study to understand. So I have used the word purpose. Remember, here I have said that there should be something like action word like the perception or purpose. And you should have the action word like understand, describe, or develop. So I have not written, maybe we have taken it from the book which we have shared. It's a reference. So the purpose of this study is to understand why commuters choose to drive to work in the city rather than use public transport. So here the population, the research population is clear. Population is like people who are driving to work to the city. Site is also maybe a little not very clear here. But if you have to identify site is, again, you can see it's the city. So commuters are the people, research participants, and site is the city, maybe in the city. And then what is the central phenomena here? So central phenomena is basically the use of not using the public transport, like using their own work, but not use of their public transport is the central phenomena here. So again, for the second one, that iron folic acid tablet example, what will be the purpose statement? So the purpose of this study is to understand the reasons of healthcare provider switch behavior. So no, this is not of the iron folic acid, but it is the same study which AIIMS Bhopal is going to conduct. So the purpose of the study is to understand the reasons of healthcare provider switch behavior and its effect on the health outcome in rural communities of Madhya Pradesh. So first, my question is, yes, so which is the site? Which color I have marked for site? You can write the color. Okay, Riya is writing red. Okay, and which is the central phenomena here? Okay, Chatra, Kanksha, true. Manisha, yes. Central phenomena is healthcare provider switch. Yes, so that is blue. Very good. And I have used the purpose and understand. And again, the people or the study people will be the persons who are doing this healthcare provider switch. So that is not very clear in this purpose statement, but this is implied that people who are doing this healthcare provider switch, they will be the people of whom we will take the study in our study. So now coming to the central phenomena is the core idea which we explore in the qualitative study. And all our result that should go towards exploring this central phenomena. Many times you will read article and you will see that the author or the researcher has deviated while analyzing the data, and he's not sticking to his initial central phenomena from which he has started. So you should not deviate from your central phenomena. Even if you are finding something new, you can add it, but you should discuss the central phenomena, which is the core idea of your qualitative study, which you have to explore. Now, this is a suggested script for writing the qualitative purpose statement. So you can see this blank space is given. So the purpose of this study may be qualitative approach. Like you can write the purpose of this phenomenological study or a qualitative descriptive study. Maybe if you are using a particular approach, you can write. So purpose of this qualitative this study will be, yeah, was, if you are writing in the past, then to explore, to now you have to put these action words like understand, describe, develop, discover. Then what? You have to write the central phenomena being studied for the participants at, that is the research site. Again, with this purpose statement, you also give the definition of your central phenomena. So at this stage in research, dash will be generally defined as dash, like a healthcare provider switch. So one should give the definition of a healthcare provider switch, how the author is defining the healthcare provider switch. Like if I'm exploring the low iron folic acid intake, I should define whom will I consider as a low iron folic acid intake, like less than, like in 100 days, are they taking for less than 10 days or are they taking less than 50%? So how I am defining my central phenomena, that should be there as a part of your purpose statement. Am I making myself clear? Is it clear to you up till this point? Or should I repeat any concept? So Garima is writing yes, Akanksha, Preeti. Okay, so I'm taking your yes as a proxy for all yes. If any no are there, then I may again repeat it. This whole problem statement as well as purpose statement. Okay, so till now we have discussed two things. We have discussed problem statement, which has got three parts, that was having background, and then it was, along with the background there was a problem, and along with the problem there was a significance of the study. These three constituted the problem statement. Then come the purpose statement. Okay, so repeat once again. Okay, I'm repeating it. I'm repeating Pooja and Madhumita. So should you want me to repeat as a summarization, or do you want me to go back to the slides and start again? Uh, please guide me, Pooja and Madhumita. Summary. Okay, summary. So again, but still I'll go back. So you can see here, I have explained with this statement, this that there's a problem statement. So the problem statement has got three parts. It has got a background, it has got a problem, and your study, the exploration of your study will help in lessening that problem, that is known as the significance. Like in this example, you can see that the author, the background, the author has given that despite there is availability of public transport, but still the people use their own vehicle to drive to the city. That was a background. But driving to the city is leading to the problem of air pollution and the congestion and the parking facility. So that problem is the problem statement, and your study will help in lessening of these problems. That is the significance. So these three constitute the problem statement. Then coming to the purpose statement. So purpose statement, if you see, a purpose statement should have the central phenomena. Central phenomena is the core idea of your research. It should have the mention of the research participants, research site. It should have the words like understand. And because it is a purpose statement, so you will write the purpose of this study. So that purpose word should also be there in the statement. And then you write the, and it should have a non-directional language, and it should also have the definition of that central phenomena. Like in this case, the purpose of study, I have written two words who are green in color, marked in green. They are the two words like purpose and understand. The color marked with red are the research site and the research participants, like commuters are the participant and city will be the research site. And not using the public transport will be the central phenomena. And again, in that case, I have to define. How do I define not using the public transport? If one person is using public transport like for 3 days in a month or for 1 week in a month, and rest of the days he is using his own vehicle, will we call him as a non-use? So how do the author is defining the central phenomena that should be there in the purpose statement? Again, so this was one template, that the purpose of this qualitative approach is to, if you are submitting the protocol, you will write will be. If you have done it, you will again change the sentence and you will write it was, to explore, to discover, or to develop, to understand. These are the action words which you should write in the qualitative purpose statement. Then you should write the central phenomena. Then you should give the participants, who will be the study population, what will be the site, and then you will have to define your central phenomena, how you define your central phenomena. Is it clear, Pooja and Madhumita, now? This problem statement and central phenomena? Okay, thank you. So I'll now, so again, this was one template which is we have given, and you have to tell me what is missing here. So one of you can read this for me. Maybe Madhumita, I can see your name at the last in the chat box. Can you read this purpose statement for me? Okay, if not, anybody else? Pooja or I?
Yes, yes, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
Yes. The purpose of this qualitative study was to generate a theoretical model that explores what low-income rural families with young children do for acute health problems from the perspective of mothers.
Thank you. You can see here that in the bracket we have written that the purpose of this qualitative. So here the person has just written the qualitative because it's a qualitative study. He has not specially mentioned the type. To explore, that was the action verb. Low income rural families, that was the maybe the population, sorry, that research site. And what they, with young children, they do for acute health event. So acute health event is a central phenomena from the perspective of mothers, who will be the participant. So what is missing here? All of you please type. Yes, Satyam is right. Definition is missing because I don't know. Yes, Manisha is also right. Like this, what is acute health event, or how to define this acute health event? That is missing. Misheshwara is also right. Now again, this one person can read this. Visheshwara, you can read this.
Yes,
Can
ma'am,
you
I'm
read
audible,
this?
ma'am.
Yeah, you are audible.
Uh, So the purpose of study is to multi-site qualitative case study is to explore how in their schools and in their lives.
Okay, so what
Yes,
is
ma'am.
missing here?
Here same general definition is missing, ma'am. What is
Okay, and
the meaning of tobacco use?
yes, very right. So what do they mean by tobacco use? That is missing here.
Yes.
Yes, good. Thank you. So now we have climbed up the stairs. So we have started with problem statement. Then we have climbed the stairs of purpose statement. And now it's the turn for research question. Okay, so research question, many of you know from your quantitative background what is a research question and how this research question will be in case of a qualitative study. So you get the research question from the purpose statement because the researcher always answer these questions. If you have got that central phenomena and the research participant and site, you get the research question from the purpose statement. So there are two types of research question. One, there is a central question first, and then there are sub questions. So these are the terms which you will not see in the quantitative. In quantitative, generally, what format we used for research question. But here in case of a qualitative, you have got a central question, which is based on the central phenomena, and you have got sub questions. So these things are very important because this will help you in forming the interview guide, and we'll see how. So this central question, it is the broadest question that can be asked about the topic you are doing or you are exploring in the qualitative project. So it again, it usually it begins with how and what. We should not use initially as word why, because many time word why it will have some cause effect this thing. And why always, if you start with why, participant initially they are also clueless, like why, because they are also not very aware. So this why question should not be there as a in first instance. It should be like how, and it should be like what. Then they will be able to tell why have got a place later down in the interview, not initially. So that central question should not have this word why in its main place. So this is an ideal order of a central question. So this it has also again the site of the parts like the participant and site. So the first is what and how, and you should try not to say this word why. Then second is your central phenomena. Third part should be your participant, and fourth is your site. So from your purpose statement, because in your purpose statement you have got the central phenomena, you have identified the participant, and you've identified the site. So only thing that you have to add this word what or how, that what or how does this, what is the central phenomena, mean for participant at this site. That is your research broad central question. Like I can have this research question, how newly joined MBBS students adjust at AIMS Patna. So it newly joined MBBS students, they are the, now can you please identify what is the central phenomena here? Let me start with some simple thing. What is the study site here? All of you please write. AIMS Patna. True? Very true. Good. Now what are the research participants? What are the research participants? MBBS students or newly joined? Yes, to be more precise, newly joined MBBS student. Now, what is the central phenomena here? Yes, true. Sushri is right. Adjust. Pooja, Sundar. Adjust is the central phenomena here. But again, I can improve this. Like, what are the coping strategies that the first year MBBS students use to adjust in their first year at AIMS Patna? This is a little refined research question. Like I have used this term of coping strategies. And you will come to know about these words when you review the literature. Because for qualitative research, you should have a good dictionary, and you should have a good selection of words also. So if your speaking language is a native English, then it will be very helpful. But if your background is not of English, don't never mind. You can use the dictionary, and we have got good dictionary online and Google also. So try to have some suitable words for those. Like in this case, you will find that what are the coping strategies that the first year MBBS students use to adjust in their first year of AIMS Patna. Now that was the central question. So we have discussed that a research question has got two parts, a central question and sub questions. Now, what are these sub questions? You must not have heard this term of sub questions as a part of research question. So these sub questions, you divide this central question into several sub questions, and then these sub questions, then they form the core content of your interview or your observation. And for example, so that central phenomena, if my central question is, what does it mean to be a medical college professor? If my central question is this, then my sub question can be, what does it mean to be a medical college professor in a classroom? What does it mean to be a medical professor as a researcher? What does it mean to be a medical college professor as a thesis supervisor? And what does it mean to be a medical college professor in your social life? So you can see you are exploring the various domain of that role, and that role is a medical college professor. So these sub questions, if you have these sub questions, nicely framed sub questions, that will help you in making the interview guide, because then your inquiry will be into these domain. And how you get the sub questions? Definitely the review of literature is very important, because for your research question and for your research problem, for every purpose statement also, you review literature. So by reviewing literature, for by observing, you have these sub questions and you have this central question also. So now some example of central question and its expected sub questions. So like if my central question is how persons living with AIDS represent and image their disease status. So what could be the sub questions here? Yes, you can type in the chat box. Any sub questions, maybe person living, although I know that it's outrightly giving it here and then, but you just think and all the answers will be right. There's no right or wrong. So if they think how they will imagine, so it will be like, if you see, the sub questions could be like disease status will be in what context? In some areas, okay, maybe in case of complications, because AIDS represent, then in if are they, is it complicated or uncomplicated, any side effect, is it with the advance or not very advanced, it is associated with stigma. Yes, stigma, because you have written that whether they reveal their status to their near one or in the community, lifestyle modification. So all those sub questions will help you in forming the your this thing interview guide. So again, we have seen that this research question should be derived from the purpose statement. And this sub questions, they narrow the central questions to specific aspect. And we should try to write 5 to 7 sub questions. So to summarize once again, your protocol in the introduction part should have the availability of the public transport. Many people who live outside, that was the background. Then this was the problem, which was the traffic congestion, and then purpose, and then research question. I want to explore the perception of commuters, why they chose to drive to work in the city rather than use the public transport. Now coming to the other terms and meaning, because we have seen that you should define the terms used in the study. So those definitions of terms are needed. Then assumptions. Now, what are the assumptions in this case? So this assumption is not that worldview or the research paradigm that will come in the methodology. So here in assumption, you have to write that you believe that the people who will give the interview or who will give share their knowledge, you believe that that is true, but you cannot verify it. Like if you go and ask someone regarding this doctor shopping, whatever they are saying, you have to believe it. You cannot verify it. So that assumption you will write that you are going with the assumption that whatever people will say, you are believing it to be true. And on the basis of that also, you are that only you are deriving your categories and themes. Again, the limitations, you have to mention the limitations also in your study. So there will be some constraints outside the control of the researcher. If that is so, you have to write that. And in the delimitation, many times the author gives the limitation. That is actively put by the author. Like if I want to do the study in the HIV, I might select only those HIV which are of advanced disease, like maybe near death, or maybe who has got a very bad prognosis. So that limitation I want to put, because maybe I want my central phenomena or the researcher or the population to be like that. So that delimitation, it is put actively by the author. And then in the conclusion, you write the what the other people have said, summarization and evaluation of other related studies. So till now we have seen that a qualitative research protocol, the first part, that is the introduction. Introduction has got 10 points we have seen. The first 3 points, that is the background, then problem, and then significance. That part, that forms, I'm just summarizing, that forms the problem statement. Then there is a purpose statement, and then there is a research question. The research question has got a central question, and then it has got a sub questions. The central question should always start from what and how. It should never start, you should try not to start your central question with why, and then you should have some 5 to 7 sub questions associated with that central question. Those sub questions will help you in forming the interview guide. And then again, this then comes the definition of terms. Okay, Satyam, I am repeating the limitations. And then comes the your definition of terms, and then comes your limitation, and then delimitation, and then comes your conclusion. So these are the points. So limitations are like, in your context, maybe if you are doing some snowball sampling, and there may be a case where the actual sufferer, or maybe you have tried to include them and they refused, or in doing the sampling only, it is not possible for you to have an actual representation. So that may be one limitation which you can write in your, because whatever you have, you are conducting your data, that is on the basis of snowball sampling, especially for those issues like stigma, or like people who are suffering from domestic violence, or things like that. So that is there. So those limitations you can put in your research, in your qualitative research, whatever which is outside your scope. Maybe in a war zone, if you, if like if you are doing a study in war conflict areas, so maybe your limitation is you cannot go many deep inside that area, so you will like to interview people who are on the border. So that things are there. The feasibility, because while conducting a study you will see the feasibility also. So that feasibility, from that perspective of feasibility, what is not possible, that you can mention it as a limitation. Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. But my question is, how can we write limitation in initial stage? Matlab, in research protocol, I have just yesterday submitted my IT's protocol. So I haven't included this limitations because I didn't knew about limitations. So
it
can
is
we write?
depends, like if you are very sure about your research participants, maybe in health it is not that pertinent, but yes, of course, for social issues and the other thing, you might know the limitation beforehand. But yes, of course, you are right, many a times in health system research, limitation is not known initially. So these are some broad guidelines. If you don't perceive any limitation at this point, you can skip in the introduction part. It is not all the second 5. Okay, like the first 5 thing, that is very important, like the problem statement, purpose statement, and research question. The rest of the 5 things, like limitations, delimitations, the definition of terms, if you include them, and if they are there, if your definition of terms, definitely that central phenomena, so you have to be mentioning it in the purpose of study itself. But regarding this other 5 parts, you may or you may not. So that's just the ideal one which we are sharing. But you are right, many times when we also submit our proposal, when we start thinking about the research, it is not always possible to mention the limitation. So you may do it a later part. Yes, that's what limitation, like non-inclusion of all participants. But I have seen even in the many research, IRC and IC, they also say that why you are mentioning limitation now. But I think if you perceive anything of this sort in your study actively, then you may mention. If you are not able to think of any limitation when you are submitting your protocol, then it's fine. Nobody is going to ask like what is the limitation at the time of submitting the proposal. So any questions up till this point? Okay. If not, then we'll move ahead with the review of literature. So coming to this review of literature, uh, review of literature is not always needed in many of the protocols, but yes, it is again a format. So it depends on the institute. Okay, yes, difference is like limitation which the author cannot control and delimitation which the author deliberately puts. That's the delimitation. Like I said that I want to do the study only on advanced HIV. I am selecting a very specific group of participants. So that's the delimitation, which I have actively put. But limitation is which the author cannot control. That's the limitation of the study. Okay, thank you, Sujit. So now this review of literature. So we'll discuss this review. So review of literature in case of a qualitative study, it always starts very small because like we do the review of literature in quantitative, uh, you may not expect the similar review here. But again, I said there is no as such that it depends on the funding agency. It depends on the institute research committee or the institute ethical committee guideline. So, but usually the review in qualitative is not that exhaustive or extensive as you will find in the quantitative. It helps to understand the background of the problem. It can be a standalone review. Sometimes it is done in the proposal, or it can be mixed with the introduction and as a part of the methodology. So there are some steps for the review of literature. So for review of literature, you should have an outline, how you are going to present the review of literature, and we'll show that. And you have to ensure the accuracy, trustworthiness, and validity. What do I mean by these three words? That whatever we read in the literature, it's not always true, and we should not go by that. That is the ultimate thing. So you should see the other thing like the journal's impact factor, the credibility of the author, and all those things to put that as a review. So you have to see that does it seem accurate, does it come from a trustworthy source, and does it seem to reflect the valid research. So you have to know the difference between the primary and the secondary source of literature. So the primary source of literature is the like original work, but the secondary sources are like somebody citing, doing editorial or doing some other sort of systematic review. Then it is a secondary one. So you should know the difference between the primary and secondary source of literature. You should see the journal impact factor. But because there are many predatory journals also these days, and there are many work which are getting published in spite of the bad or the less good quality, I can say. We should not say poor quality. So that should be seen, that the journal impact factor, and just because something is published, it doesn't mean that it is valid. So you should take care of these things whenever you are doing the literature review. So very important thing, whenever you are doing the literature review, you should annotate and say what you read. And there is a there are various reference manager software like Mendeley, Zotero, and that annotation is a very nice option in the Zotero. And we have also explored it because we were using Zotero for so long, but we did not use it as a annotation for the review of literature. And that option is so good that while writing the discussion, if you import those annotated thing, it directly comes to your document. So that is a very nice option. Maybe we can conduct sometime this workshop also, small 1 day or a 2 day workshop on how to use this reference software as a literature review, as a annotation, and it helps us in writing discussions also. But again, it is time taking, it needs practice, but it is highly effective process in the manuscript writing. The second thing is the mapping out of the review of literature. So this mapping out, you have to make a literature map. So now how to make that literature map? Like if this research question is why young females do not accept technology as readily as young males. You will always see that it is said that females are not very good in electronic gadgets, or boys, they are more smart, and females lack these skills. So if your research question is like, why young females do not accept technology as readily as young males? So now if you have to make a literature map of this, so what is a literature map? Basically, you try to correlate your research question or the central question with the other factor. Like, if you write this, what factors contribute to the gender difference in the interest in technology? There can be many factors like home environment, socioeconomic status, self-efficacy, intrinsic motivation, learning style, and remember those sub questions. So it is somehow very much similar to those sub questions also, because that will help those, when you have formulated those sub questions, that will help in uh, finding the factors which are giving rise to this contributing the gender difference. So initially you find a map like this, and then you refine your map. So this is something literature map, and then you write your literature, like you will write socioeconomic factors contributing to the gender difference. Then you can write the self-efficacy. Similarly, you can write the intrinsic motivation factor, and you will look for those particular portion in the review of literature. Many times we see that the students, they submit their research proposal author-wise. So they quote all the finding of one author at one place of time. But if you are skipping from doing a hard work at the time of literature review, you will have to do it at the end, because you have to take out that respective portion of that author while you are giving your result. Because if you are presenting your result, you will do it. Some mapping also you do it when you present your result. So if you make a literature, this review of literature map, if you make a literature map, that helps in writing discussion also, because you have segregated the each and every point from the initial this thing. So that is very helpful. That's why we always encourage at our place also the students to make a literature map probably, and then write the specific portion of that literature in that particular section. So review of literature should also include the review of the research methods and the tool use. So this is briefly we have discussed regarding the review of literature. So it is not the review of literature in case of a qualitative. It is not that extensive as that of quantitative. It depends on the funding agency or your requirement of your institute review board. But again, it can be as a standalone review of literature also, like we do it for quantitative. And you should take care of the factor of journal, what is published, the validity and accuracy of that finding, whether it is a primary source or a secondary source. And if you make a literature map, it is always helpful when you write the discussions also. So now coming to the third part, which is the methodology. So research methodology, now comes the role of research paradigm. So in qualitative research, you should always mention your research paradigm. Many of you have mentioned, I think few of you have mentioned that while reviewing the protocol, the articles which we have shared yesterday. So this methodology, whatever methodology we choose, that is determined by our axiology, ontology, and the epistemology. So our methodology again has got these parts. So the first starting part should be of your paradigm. So what is your qualitative paradigm? Then you write your research design. So we have discussed the type of research design yesterday. So the type of research design which you want to use for your central phenomena or for your purpose statement, that you should write. Then you should write about the participants and sampling, then the study instruments, then the research procedures, then plan for data analysis, how you are going to do the data analysis, ethical consideration, and plan presenting the result and summary. So that's the thing. And this we will discuss, or again, we will share a sample protocol with you. Maybe I can show you now, or maybe once I think we should now break for 5 minutes. And then once you come back, I'll again show you a template, reference protocol, and we'll share that with you. So we are breaking now for 5 minutes. So it's how much time by hour? What? So it's 11:30. Okay, it's 11.